Okay, now I know you saw the title. Just want to put it out there right now. This is not as morbid as you know, maybe people are thinking or speculating. It's just a response to former President Obama's eulogy at John Lewis's funeral. So that's all it is. Just want to put it out there. Don't want to, leave any doubt there. But speaking of Obamas, Michelle Obama has a podcast, and she mentioned recently that she has some low-grade depression because of the Trump administration. I can relate to that because I felt the same way for 8 years when her husband was in office.
From the highways of America, here's the podcast where we talk politics, a little entertainment, some culture, and this and that, from the road to your ears. This is Trend Chat with your host, Brian Bledsoe.
And welcome to another episode of Trend Chat. I am your host, Brian Bledsoe. And if you want to connect with us on Facebook and Snapchat, it's at TrendChat247. But on Instagram and Twitter, it's at Brian L. Bledsoe. So I'm still trying to make sure as time goes by, I can say that as quick as I used to say the previous social media accounts. But it's something I'm still getting used to putting together. So thanks for listening. And we are recording in Nashville today, and I can say today because I don't know if you can hear the truck running in the background, but because it's too hot to be trying to do a podcast without some air conditioning. So that's just life being on the road. And people who, I'm a truck driver and just all over and driving all over state to state. And it's funny just mentioning that because I saw something, a tweet by Tim Young, and he had like a survey asking people about, have you seen any Biden signs or, anything like that, wherever you are. Just kind of doing a poll, just trying to see what's out there. And it's funny because for me, like I said, I'm driving all over the country, and I know I tweeted out on social media, on Twitter and Instagram as well, that everywhere I'm driving to, I rarely see anything Biden. I think I maybe see one or two. I really don't remember seeing any signs. I think I maybe see one or two bumper stickers on some cars. But that being said, like every day I can see something Trump 2020. I can see that whether in the form of a sign or a flag or a bumper sticker, or driving in some places, especially in the Midwest, you see like whole like a sign on a tractor trailer out in the middle of a field somewhere, or billboards and all that. And so I see that. I would probably say every day somewhere, one way or another, on the road somewhere. So I don't know what that says as far as what's going to happen in November, but I'm just, by mentioning about driving and everything, just kind of reminded me of that tweet. And so that's what I'm seeing right now, at least. So that's just I guess that's just one example as far as, I guess, the enthusiasm for when it comes to Biden and for President Trump. So before we get into everything, and I guess also in the reasoning for the title of this episode, I guess people, even with what I said in the beginning, people probably still wondering what I meant by that. So I'm going to get to that, but I want to mention a couple of, I guess programming notes in a way, and something that I've been talking about for at least a couple of months anyway, but getting close to the end, and now I actually have more details, because so this is right now, this is episode 181. So this is one of 20 episodes left of Trend Chat. So we made the decision that we're just going to do 20 more episodes, and by saying that, if we continue coming on weekly, it will end around like the I said end, but it will like end for a couple of months, because let me just finish it out. So we're going to do 20 episodes, and that should end around the end of sometime in December, and we're still planning to go to the March for Life though. So our final episode, if we, I'm guessing the March for Life is going to continue. It's going to happen, maybe in a scaled down event to where it's just a march as opposed to other events that go on around it. But I'm guessing the march itself is still going to happen. So we're still planning to go to that. And I've always wanted to go, and I never had the chance. It was always between March for Life or CPAC, because they're close to the same time. And, being on the road, I can't take a lot of time off. And so I will always choose CPAC, but this time I'm wanting to choose to go to March for Life. That was obviously before all the pandemic, but still, I'm pretty certain that March is going to happen still. So don't know, if we get some interviews or whatever like that, even regardless of what happens, if we get interviews or not, I want to go, and I want the last episode to be after that event. Because it's something, if you've been listening to the podcast, I know sometimes when people talk about being a one-issue voter, I don't consider myself a one-issue voter, but if I'm going to pick one, it would be on abolishing abortion, or doing anything I can to slow down, or anything to bring to an end to the horrible practice that is slaughtering innocent children. So if I'm going to pick one, that's what I'm going to pick. And so I've been wanting to go to this event, and I'm pretty certain, like I say, hopefully it'll still go on, and I'll go to that. And that's after that, with whatever content we get, it's going to be I'm planning to do a 3-hour episode for the last one. So regardless of what happens, we're going to make our last episode that that long. And so, so I just want to put that out there. Give some more details as far as where we're going. So this is one of 20 for the last episodes for Trend Chat, which, I would say it's pretty certain that it's going that direction, just because. And I guess I'll get more into it, more so probably around the last couple episodes. But that being said, just want to let y'all know about that. And so, but I do want to mention another thing, which, I guess it's not as a hot topic as it was probably about a week or two ago, but it's still very relevant because of what is going on constantly. So I know there was a video by a group of doctors. It was, like I said, it was probably about 2 weeks ago now. Was it 2 weeks? Yeah, I can't remember. But there was this video that was out, and one part in particular that got a lot of attention is where you had one doctor out of Houston that was saying, just making the statement that, hydroxychloroquine, is a cure, that, we don't have to be going through these different routes and avenues to try to find a cure and all that, where we already have one available and stuff like that. And so she was saying all that, and it was being, it went viral, and it was quickly, removed from all the big tech companies, all the big tech platforms, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, all of them. Anytime someone put it up, either they would flag it as false information, or they would just straight up remove it. And this is not about what she was saying or about whether you believe it or not. It's not even about that. It's just the fact that you having this is another example where big tech is just, they're not a platform in the sense of where they're not, this is not an open forum. This is not where you can, where people are able to have much of a difference of narrative. And we're kind of seeing that from all these platforms. And so they're treating themselves pretty much like a publisher, and it kind of goes back into everything, whether, whether they should be held liable. And because at this point, they're protected from being sued because they're not viewed as a publisher. So, like, they're having their cake and eating it too, in a sense, because they're making the case that, well, we're not a publisher, we're just a platform, but yet we act as publishers because we decide what we determine is true and false and whatnot, and we remove content because of that. But that's acting as a publisher, not an open forum, not a platform. But they've been able to get away with that, and for a long time, and they've been very well protected from any sort of litigation from whenever they remove a post for any sort of reason. Because you can't sue them because they're protected by the law. And you have senators like Ted Cruz and that have been speaking out against this, where these companies are not acting as what they say they are. They're acting as a publisher, where they are determining what is true and false. And they should be held liable for that. And so, but for that to happen, language will have to be changed in the Communications Decency Act. And I don't think it's going to happen. One, just like pretty much any other issue, they have their lobbyists that are in there, and well-paid lobbyists that are in there that are having both sides of the aisle keep this going to where they don't have to face any sort of lawsuit for what they're doing right now. So anyway, from all that being said, as we continue going down this route with these companies having this much power over so many in this country, around the world, because everyone, for the most part, is probably on one or all of these platforms. So, and if they become a gatekeeper to what they determine is true and false, that's I know you can call it a slippery slope, but that's, you can see where the narrative is only being allowed in one way. It's only anything conservative, anything that is Christian, especially anything conservative that's controversial, that's a Christian, whether it's scripture or anything like that. You can very well see this going down that route, because and from that, now this is something I mentioned on the Blexit Texas podcast actually last week, where I'm not someone that has any I guess, infrastructure or anything to where I can build something. But I will hope someone right now is considering that has the know-how to do this, to like build some sort of infrastructure or a network or something like that is totally independent from these companies as well as government. Because as of right now, a lot of this, what's going on is being, like I said, whether you're talking about these companies being protected from being from any legal action for what they're removing. I mean, you're gonna have to, at some point, I think you're gonna have to have some sort of network that is totally, independent from anything that is connected to any of these platforms, government, and for some form of communication. Because the people who are in these companies on the left, a lot of these people, the Democrats, progressives, socialists, communists, take your pick. If you go down through these platforms, I mean, like I said, whether it's Facebook or Instagram, and you think that, you see a lot of times from a lot of people that get either have posts removed or some of their accounts are just totally, suspended permanently and all that. You think they're going to stop the people who want to suppress those thoughts, those ideals, the people that want to suppress that? You think they're just going to stop at these platforms? Well, okay, we're taking them off this popular platform that most people use. Okay, we've done that, and like, you think they're going to stop there? Because we can very well, those people that they consider so controversial, they can, go elsewhere. Right now, the hot place to go is Parler. And we're on Parler as well, actually. So but it's just Brian L. Bledsoe on Parler. And I forgot, I haven't mentioned that in the intro, now I think about it. But yeah, so I mean, everyone that has become so frustrated with these platforms are moving over to Parler. And you think they're going to stop there? I mean, Parler can hold up right now, and where they're having a actual open forum, or not banning people in the sense of to the degree of where these other platforms are doing it. But you think they're okay? You think they're just going to say, oh well, they're over there, we're just going to leave them alone? No. After so long, they're going to go after access in general, like internet access, where they're going to target these internet providers to where they're going to say these people out here are, the things they're saying is hurtful and are too dangerous to be broadcast on, or to be or to have any sort of internet access, because they're too dangerous to the public. And that's what they're going to go to these internet providers, say that they should not have any access at all to publish their hateful, or they'll call it whatever, dangerous content. It shouldn't be out there at all. And that'll be the next step. And so that's why I'm saying about having this whole, there need to be some sort of infrastructure and network, because okay, people can go to Parler and all that, and they can hold up if that happens. But after you get to the point to where, like I said, I'm no futurist or anything. It's not like I'm like predicting the future, but I just feel like people who are wanting to suppress, that want to keep any dissenting voice from being heard, they're not just going to stop where at these popular sites. They don't want your voice to be heard at all if they can help it. So the next step they will go, like I said, it will be going to these internet providers to make sure you don't even have access. And then you basically have to go back to the where you're in the public square. But that's already being challenged right now anyway, to be out in, whether you go to a university or anything like that. So yeah. I will hope someone is doing something like that, because I feel like it's coming eventually, unless the only way this can stop is if people actually wake up to the sense of where, okay, this censorship needs to stop. And this should be coming from not only from conservatives, but from people, even liberals, who value free speech. And so that's the only way this is going to stop. It's going to have to come to a point where people are going to say, okay, no more of this. And either just stop using the platforms, or to the point where you have enough people across these platforms that would come together and say, you need to stop that, where they change, or another platform comes up and that is actually popular, that would not do any of these things that Facebook, Instagram, Twitter are doing. But another thing to that is that regardless of the platform, even if it's Parler, one thing that comes with this is that the corporate pressure that comes with it as well, because a lot of these corporations have plenty of Democrats, progressives, left-wing activists in all of these corporations, as well as the tech companies as well. So these corporations are going to try to pressure any new platform, and Parler will be one. I don't know if they've already had this happen or not, but they're going to pressure them to be more restrictive and to start suspending accounts and all of that, just so they can get those ad dollars from those companies. Because these companies are going to come around to a Parler or any other new popular platform and say, well, we would love to do business with your platform, but we have concerns about some of these people that you have on your platform that we consider controversial, or that we consider too dangerous to have access. And we would love to do business with you, but maybe if you take some of those people off, then we'll sponsor you, or we'll put money into your company. And that's something Parler is going. Like I said, I don't know if they maybe already had that happen, but that's something that's going to happen to these platforms. Any new platform that come up, it's happened already, for Facebook and Twitter, and they've done what they said. and so yeah, I think the one thing people really need to realize is that Democrats, these progressives, all of these communists, socialists, Antifa, Black Lives Matter, all of them, you group them all together, they're everywhere. And especially in these corporations, they're up in the executive boards, they are everywhere. And it's not like there are no conservatives out there that are in these companies, but the liberals out there, the left-wing activists, all of them, they are the most vocal. A lot of us conservatives tend to not, especially at work, don't really want to put our politics out there at work in particular. But these left-wing socialists, these communists, these Antifa people, some of them don't want to because they know what comes with it as well, but there are a lot more willing to be vocal at work. And because, well, for one, their risk is not nearly as high as for a conservative, because if a conservative come out at work, they can probably be fired a whole lot quicker than any sort of someone saying, let's put it this way, someone can get fired a whole lot quicker saying all lives matter than someone coming to work with a Black Lives Matter t-shirt on, raising their fists and kneeling at work. They could probably get away with that, but if one person says, no, well, all lives matter, that person will get fired a lot quicker. And so, but yeah. And these people are all over corporations. That's why you have all these corporations that were so quick to bend the knee, really, to Black Lives Matter, because they're, whether they have their employees, or like I said, people in the executive boards, or, yeah. So anyway, that was a lot I noticed, but I just wanted to I don't know if it's some sort of warning or whatever, but it's just something that has been on my mind. I just wanted to mention that. And so I guess we'll finally get to the subject of the title. I don't know if people have been in suspense in that, but so we'll get to that after a word from Young Americans Against Socialism.
Hey guys, this is Morgan Zegers, the founder and CEO of Young Americans Against Socialism. We are a nonprofit organization working to preserve a free, fair, and prosperous America for generations to come, all by equipping our generation with the truth about socialism. If you're interested in watching our educational videos, donating to the cause, joining the Ask Coalition, or becoming a contributor, you can do all of these things at fightsocialism.org. We hope you'll join us in this crucial fight for the future of our great country. Thanks!
Hey, it's Lawrence Jones with Fox News. Check out Trend Chat with my brother Brian Bledsoe.
Trend Chat is proud to be a part of the hashtag Life Tribe or Cultural Life as they seek to celebrate life through the world of fashion. Go to COL1972.com and get 10% off your purchase when you enter the code Trend Chat.
All right, so I guess, well, before we get into the subject, just to leave y'all in suspense a little bit more. But first, let's get into our, I guess a little bit, I will say, into our, what we call our inventory update, which, yep. At this point, I really don't even know which one is actually the sound for it or not. But anyway, really, there's only one thing that I wanted to mention because I posted about it earlier this week, is that for the first time since March, I saw Pharrell on the shelf. Yeah, so I was just surprised to see it, because ever since March, when this whole pandemic started and everyone started, buying all the toilet paper and all of that, all the, I guess, the brands that were synonymous with whether it's hand sanitizer or disinfectant spray. So when it comes to disinfectant spray, some people don't say disinfectant spray, they say Lysol. But that's just a brand of disinfectant spray. So I rarely saw Lysol. I see that maybe once or twice ever since March, but I have seen it. But the one brand I haven't seen when it comes to hand sanitizer was Pharrell. Like, you will see it at the store you can go to the dispenser and get it. But as far as buying some on the shelf, haven't seen it since March. And for the first time this week, I saw it at a Walmart. And even then, it was like only 2 bottles. There was other brands of hand sanitizer, because at this point, hand sanitizer in some of these places, there's not even a limit on how much sanitizer you can buy now. Because before, because people were buying so much, that was on the list of limited items. So you can only buy one item of sanitizer, or one pack of toilet paper and stuff like that. But some of these places have gotten to where they've replenished their hand sanitizer shelves to the point where they don't have that limit anymore. And this was one of those stores, the Walmart that I was at didn't have a limit because it was all full again, except for the Perel. And like I said, it was only 2 bottles of Perel. But anyway, that was just, yeah, I just had to mention that because other than that, nothing really has changed, really. Disinfectant spray is still very hard to find. Yep. And again, I guess say it every time. It's just your best chance is to go in the beginning, early in the morning, beginning of the day. That's the best chance of getting into these products that, depend on where you're at, because there's some places where, there's still, some stuff is still scarce. And if it's that way where you're at, then your best bet is to go early in the morning whenever that stuff is normally restocked. So, and on that, the next thing we want to also, as we've, I guess, kind of made a a bit of a segment, is our, I guess, to shout out our locations. So now that is the music for that. I have not forgotten that. So, but so we have a new location that I have never seen. Matter of fact, we have 2. So starting off with the countries, obviously United States is at the top because there's only 3 this week. But so United States at 94%. So, but we have 2 countries that I haven't seen before. One is Sweden. I think I said it right. And the Dominican Republic. Never seen those 2 on there before. So thank you to people in Sweden and Dominican Republic for listening. Tell more people. So, and like I said, United States at 94%. So now with the cities, San Jose, California at number 10. And then followed behind that is Santo Domingo, Dominican Republic. And then Spring Hill, Florida, Lexington, South Carolina, Round Rock, Texas, Mansfield, Texas, Longmont, Colorado. I'm about to say Longmont, Canada. Longmont, Colorado, York, Pennsylvania, Dallas, Texas, obviously. And at the number 1 position was Cleveland, Ohio. So thanks to everyone. But yeah. Again, if you, I guess, want to hear your city, shout it out, or country, because like I said, Dominican Republic was is new, and Sweden as well. But yeah, so yeah, and like I said, the reason I even mentioned this is because it just amazes me that the fact that to see any internationally, the one that blows my mind the most. But on top of that, just even seeing other states outside of Texas. And funny seeing Cleveland at the number 1 position, given it the whole thing with the Republican convention. And because that's, that was the beginning of Trend Chat. I don't know if I mentioned that on here, is that the concept of doing Trend Chat started at the Republican convention in 2016 in Cleveland, and talking to different people and yeah, just that's kind of where it started, because right after that I put in motion as far as what to do. I just still didn't know I was doing a podcast, but I knew I was going to do something else, because I was already writing for Politichicks here and there. And I remember it's funny because I was being a delegate in 2016. I was able to have some time to talk with other delegates, and one of those delegates were David Barton, and I actually got a chance to talk with him for those couple of days on a regular basis, because we was all all in the same spot during the convention and everything, and we were and so I got a chance to talk about different things, and he was one of the people who encouraged me to consider doing something like this. So yeah, I don't know if I ever mentioned this on the podcast, but yeah, so that's all that. Yeah, just kind of brought up some memories. So okay, let me stop stalling. because I know some people want to know, why did you name this episode When I Die? So we're going to get that after another break. No, I'm joking. Not going to do that. But so the reason like I mentioned in the beginning, this is something that kind of I thought about because for one, well, we've had two in particular deaths in the past couple of weeks. A couple of weeks ago, you had Representative John Lewis, who passed away, and also more recently, you had former presidential candidate Herman Cain pass away, who was also part of that Uncle Tom documentary that just released a couple of months ago. And on top of that, it was just so for Representative Lewis, he had obviously being a representative and also taking part in the civil rights movement as well, and so there were a number of memorials and everything that were going on in honor of his life and everything. And one thing that I guess kind of caught some attention is during the one I think that was in Atlanta, was you had former President Obama do the eulogy for Representative Lewis, and I guess the story that came out of that is that Obama politicized his eulogy and talking about voting, and he was just using his eulogy to talk about Trump, and talk about not by saying his name, but basically pretty much alluding to the Trump administration and voting rights and stuff like that. And people were saying like, how dare he use his eulogy to politicize, to talk about politics and politicize, a memorial and stuff like that. And so that brings me to why I mentioned this, why this episode is titled that, because I disagree with that, with people who are upset, at least. Now, I mean, if that's not how they would want, their eulogy or how their funeral will go, then, totally understandable. If that's what you want, that's fine. But when I was hearing all that about how, former President Obama was, using his time to mention all of that, for me, I would say, so like, here are my last wishes. I guess I want to put that out here right now for people to know. Here, it's broadcast public across, the internet, here on this podcast. So, if I die, when I die, there's no point saying if, because it's going to happen sooner or later. but when I do, I'm glad I haven't mentioned that before, because I'm glad I didn't call that if. But yeah, anyway. So when I die, I want everyone to know that is listening to this podcast, that is going to listen to it, for whatever reason, I don't know. You have my permission to politicize and evangelize my funeral, like in the eulogy, whatever. You have my permission. Politicize, evangelize. That's what I want. That's what I want you to do. In the sense of in alignment with my own values, I'm saying. Just want to make sure I say that, because let's say, for instance, if I died as part of some sort of mass shooting or something like that, don't use my funeral to implement gun control. Just because I died in a mass shooting doesn't mean I would have wanted gun control. I want you to know that right now. You're hearing it on this podcast. No, regardless of what happens to me, don't use my death to try to put forth some sort of infringement to the Second Amendment. So stuff like that, what I'm saying, as far as politicizing. But I would say, I guess if I want to plan out the eulogy in a sense, is that I would want the gospel to be presented in the beginning and at the end. In the middle, as well if you want to. But I guess if I'm going to plan it out, if I want to give my wishes, I would want it to be in the beginning and at the end. And in the middle, talk about all the things that, I mean, the whole reason why I'm even mentioning this is that I have no problem with people wanting to bring up any political topics at my funeral or whatever, memorial. I wouldn't have any problem with that because I thought these issues were important during my life. So why would I not want you to talk about it, at a memorial or whatever like that? Like I said, I don't know. Like, I'm just mentioning this if for some reason, anyone had a platform because of something that happened to me, gave you a platform to reach people, for whatever happened. I don't know. But if you have that platform, I'm saying it right now, use it. Use it to present the gospel, to tell people to repent of their sins and to trust in Jesus Christ. And he is the only way to the Father. John 14:6. Present the gospel. Also, in that, talk about the horrible practice of murdering innocent children and how that should be abolished, aka abortion. Abolishing abortion. Talk about that. I thought that was very important, and so I think that's something you should definitely talk about at my funeral. Talk about protecting the Second Amendment. Talk about, illegal immigration and stopping the illegal immigration. And make sure you say illegal, because I have no problem with legal immigration. My issue is with people who are coming in this country illegally. So talk about that. Constitutional carry. I mean, just whatever. I don't care if you do a PowerPoint presentation about all of this. If you want to, you have my permission to talk about all of that. And so, that's the reason why I named it. Like, talk about the decentralization of the federal government. I mean, just go on and on. If you have, like Aretha Franklin time where it can go on for 9 hours for whatever reason, I don't know why, but if it goes on that long, talk about it. So yeah, again, yeah. So that's the reason why I named it this way, because I would want the people to be up there to talk about the things I was passionate about. And especially if you have a platform, especially if like I said, for some odd reason, my funeral gives people like this massive platform for whatever reason that, talk about all that. And so yeah, that's the reason why I named it that. Cause, so I would want a lot of, and I mean, that's just how I feel. I don't know. Like I said, other people very well may not want that because, for whatever reason. But I'm just letting you know on this podcast. And I'm I want to probably put this on writing, in writing. Getting too worked up. But, put it in writing, maybe put it in my will or something. I don't know. But yeah, you have my permission to talk about all the things that I was passionate about, and go and don't feel like, if someone said, well, why are you talking about these, issues and during the funeral? Because he said so. Because that's what he said he wanted. So, and I don't know if John Lewis felt that way, if he wanted that, if he wanted what Obama mentioned in his eulogy. Maybe he felt the same way. Maybe he would wanted him to say all that. I don't know. So that's why I didn't really get too upset about hearing what he said in the eulogy, and and then hearing the criticism for others that were saying he shouldn't have said that. I mean, I don't know. Maybe that was his wish for him to say that. I don't know. But so again, you have just want to say again, you have my permission. And you can listen to this podcast to see what you want to say or use. You can use it, I guess use the clips of this podcast. I mean, I know I mentioned in the beginning, so this at the end we should stop at 200 episodes. And I plan to have this downloaded on a hard drive somewhere, put in a safe somewhere. I don't know, it's a time capsule of some sort. So you can go to that and use that for the funeral or whatever. So just letting everyone know. Now, just I know one thing we want to mention before we go. After a word from Expressions, I guess we'll talk a little bit about what has happened recently, especially something that you probably haven't even heard about if you're watching most mainstream media, or maybe it was mentioned but very underreported. And two things. One is the body cam tape from the arrest of George Floyd has came out this week, and also something Joe Biden said as well about the African American community that he has since apologized for, but I think you probably haven't heard it. But still, I guess I'll talk about those two things. But first, let's hear a word from Expressions.
This is Lacey Williams, the founder and president of Expressions Magazine, letting you know that you can order our quarterly magazine and support female conservatives by visiting express-conservatism.com, or you can follow us on social media. On Instagram with the username of expressions_conservemag, or on Twitter with the handle of @express_conserve. Get your copy today.
Hey everyone, this is Lucia Scaramacchia, and you are listening to Trend Chat.
So you want to keep America great, but you don't know where to go to get some Trump-centered gear? Check out TrumpMug.com. And if you put in the code TRENDCHAT, you get 10% off. So at TrumpMug.com, they have flags, coins, mugs, of course. So go to TrumpMug.com, put in the code TRENDCHAT, get 10% off. Again, TrumpMug.com with the code TRENDCHAT for 10% off.
All right, so I guess first off, let's there was a get to this thing with Biden. So I'm going to play this clip right quick, and I'm just going to say this. This is a clip of an interview and all that, and I'm just going to play one part of it. Now, I'm sure once I play this, people are going to say like, well, what was the context to it? And anyway, I'm going to play this right quick and just give you an idea as far as what is. I'm guessing you probably haven't heard it because media definitely made sure to not have this out there, not play this clip. Just imagine what it would have been if Trump would have said something like this, because this would have been 24/7. They would have been looping this around. But because Biden said it, and obviously media, Democrats are pretty much the same as far as, as far as covering for him and whatever. I mean, they have no problem with him sitting in the basement. If Trump was sitting in his basement, they'd be like, why is he not? I mean, even when the riots were going on and they were reporting about why is Trump hiding in his basement, like for a couple of hours. Biden has been in his basement, since March for the most part. Comes out every now and then like a groundhog. I mean, but they're having a problem with as far as that. But like I said, anyway, it's not surprising, but still, just whenever I think about that, it as much as it's known now, it's always frustrating to see how the media is just so willing to just cover for anything any of these Democrats want to do. Anyway, here's the clip. So, hold up. Have to find the clip first. So, all right.
What you all know, but most people don't know, Unlike the African American community, with notable exceptions, the Latino community is an incredibly diverse community with incredibly different attitudes about different things.
So, okay, now you hear that. So, you're probably thinking, okay, what was the context of that? So, for one, the interview, the interviewer was talking about the Latino community. So, like I said, even if you go back and hear the context of it, it's not going to help, because for some odd reason, Biden just mentions the African American community, like out of nowhere. It wasn't prompted from the interviewer. He didn't mention anything about African Americans. He just came out and said that, and that's what he said. Because, like I said, they would talk about the Latino community. So, but the thing about that is that, so this has gone viral, at least amongst conservative circles, to put it that way. Like I said, because media is not covering it all, but, you know, the thing is, and something I've commented on a number of places whenever I saw this video, is that, well, politically speaking, I mean, the black community is proving his point, because, you know, you're voting 90 to 95% for Democrats, so it seems like there is no diversity, at least politically. It's not. So, and I guess I would say I'm part of that notable exceptions that Biden mentioned. Because, I mean, like I said, going from 90 to 95%, I'm in that 5 to 10%, which I know in 2016 it was actually 88% that voted for Hillary. I mean, yeah, that's still a very vast majority, but it's not in the 95% that it's normally been. So more people, you know, more black people voted for Trump than in previous election years, presidential election years. So who knows? We'll see what happens at the end this year, as far as how, if that number increase or decrease. For Trump, at least, as far as if it grows. So, I don't know. So, now, on top of that, another story I guess you probably don't hear about too much, at least on mainstream media, is about the tape of George Floyd. They showed the arrest, and if you watched the tape, you saw where he was approached at his car, and, you know, you can visibly see he was out of it in sense. And so one thing in particular, there was, you know, everything that's been going on with these riots and protests and all that, and one thing that was like a motto of it, on top of Black Lives Matter, another thing is that I can't breathe, because that's one of the things he mentioned at the end. And like I said, and first off, I'm gonna say, all of this does not justify what happened at the end of this. What the end that everyone has already seen, where the officer, you know, was on his neck for 8 minutes till he died. None of what happened that we see in the tape justifies that, but it does make everything a lot more. It's not nearly as, you know, cut and dry to make it seem like here these officers that were just out here just to kill a black man, because that's the narrative that's constantly being, you know, parroted right now at these protests that are still going on, and along with the riots and looting and everything. So by watching the tape, you see that, for one, like I said, he was out of it, and also he was resisting arrest. He wasn't getting into the police car, and he was saying he can't breathe before they even put him on the ground. And so there are a lot of things that if people would have saw this beforehand, not saying the protest still wouldn't have happened, but I think the number of people that would be so willing to get behind all of these protests would not be as great, because they would have seen the tape, which that I would say that's probably the reason why they didn't release the tape really, or took their time in releasing the tape, especially because you have a Democratic attorney general up in Minnesota. So it was in their best interest to not show the tape, or at least delay it as much as possible, or at least when it does get released, to try to bury it as much as possible. So, but now the tape is out, and now, so all of this has been going on, and it's now the story actually have some more detail, a lot more detail with it. And I don't know, because I'm pretty sure that the protest still would have happened even if the tape would have came out, because there's been plenty of examples where you have, unfortunately, a lot of these protests, have Black Lives Matter jumping on these a lot of these tragic or unfortunate police interactions that go on, and a lot of times they defend some of the most abhorrent behavior that is going on for the reason why the person was being arrested, or why the person was fatally fatally shot or whatever like that. And they'll be out there protesting for something that there was, the police had a reason why they did what they did. In the case of George Floyd, at the very end, in particular, yeah, like I said, I think we all agree on the very ending of it that he shouldn't be on his neck till he died. I think we all agree right there. But outside of that, or 8 minutes there, that's where everyone disagreed and go off on different directions with this. So anyway, I know this is probably something we'll talk about on the Blexit Texas podcast, which I've mentioned in the previous episodes, that we on the Blexit Texas Facebook page, me and Harper Price, we are on every Sunday at 7. And I'm guessing we'll probably talk about that. Probably talk about Biden as well. Or maybe some other things. I don't know yet. But so check that out on Sunday at 7 o'clock. I mean, you can check it out after that. It should be still on the page. So I know. Before we go, I do want to mention one thing that has came and gone in the past couple of weeks. But I guess I'll just end on this. Is that that whole thing that came out from the National African American Museum a couple of weeks ago? I don't think I've ever mentioned this, but is that, I don't know if anyone saw about this, where they had this chart for whiteness. It's saying, like, if you believe in some of these I guess some of these things, then you're just subscribing to whiteness. Anyway, it was laughable, although it was published at a Smithsonian institution, and so I mean, it was laughable. But it also was concerning, because having something like that where you're validating all of these, all these ideas by basically saying that if you believe in objective thinking, then you're acting white. Like, that's something where, especially Black conservatives like myself, definitely, hear all the time, because being a conservative, then saying you're just trying to be white, stuff like that. I mean, you can watch the Uncle Tom documentary in the sense of about that. And so, and here you are having an institution like the Smithsonian that is just, endorsing the accusation that if you think differently than the majority of people in the Black community, then you're just acting white. And they're just they just agreed with that by posting something like that. Now, like I said, this thing has been, they've removed it now and all of that. But for one, I mean, who thought that was a good idea in the first place? Because if you look closely at that, if you were able to look at it, it's not nothing new. Because all those those bullet points that was in that, I guess, pamphlet came from a essay or something like that back in the 90s. So, but yeah, anyway, it was just like I said, being objective, thinking you should have objective thinking is for some reason is being white. That was just crazy. But the one that kind of got me is that so just said as before we go is that being on time, which I kind of laughed out loud on that one. If you value being on time, if you respect someone else's time to, for yourself to be on time, then you're acting white, essentially. So I'm like, wow. Like, I mean, so basically we're just endorsing what black people call CPT time, CPT, like colored people time, which basically means we show up when we feel like it. Like I said, not really respecting anyone else's time. That's being black in their eyes. And I kind of wonder, what was the black culture? What is the black culture to that? The opposite of this? So anyway, thank you for listening. And until next time, we'll chat with you later.